Today, in current events from a Christian perspective, you can now channel your dead grandmother via an AI app. I shouldn't have to say this, but that is evil, demonic, and to use a biblical term, it's called necromancy. This is just pure evil and must be avoided. We'll talk about why in today's episode. Meanwhile, the International Olympic Committee finally acknowledges that there are differences between men and women. I know, another obvious thing, but the Olympics, the biggest sports organization in the world, finally agrees. In other news, the Ukraine conflict could be finally over. We'll look at a couple of news updates there. And finally, we look at what is happening in Dearborn, Michigan. Spoiler, it is not American values. All this and more today. I'm Matt Odegaard, and this is Church Public. All right. Hey, I know it's probably not Christmas exactly where you are, but that was the Christmas intro because I figured we're just about to Christmas. I know some of you will be like, it's not even Thanksgiving. Hey, maybe you're listening to this after Thanksgiving, and maybe we're closer to Christmas than we think. At any rate, I really like Christmas and wanted to do that intro. So we're going to look at that and some more things today. Hit all the buttons, like all the things, and subscribe and do the reviews. You know the drill, you know all that stuff. Don't forget to head over to the can't even say it this morning, Substack channel, substack.com/@churchpublic, and check out some stuff there. You can subscribe, you can sponsor, support, whatever you want to do there. Really appreciate anything. This is just a labor of love, and I do love doing it, and have only so much time and so much resources to do it. All right. First story today is an app where you can channel your AI grandmother or other relative that has left you. I have muted the audio on this. If you're just listening and the audio version, hey, first of all, love you. Appreciate the audio version. If you want to see some of the videos and pictures and other things from today, navigate to the YouTubes and Rumble. You can watch it on the Substack. You can sign up for this email on Substack so you never miss an episode, which is kind of fun. At any rate, what we're seeing here is a mom and her tiny little baby chatting with what looks like grandma. Looks like your regular little video chat that you do on your phone with your relatives that are across country. Only this person that you're chatting with is no longer living. So this is a problem. They claim you can now create AI avatars of your deceased loved ones so that they can talk to your kids in 30 years in the future. This is... I guess from a heartfelt perspective, this might seem great. I would like to push back against that and say this is not great. This is evil and demonic, and I'm not being too strong on this. Like, this is really not good. We can't fall into this. Here's the thing. You'll get this idea that, well, this is great because my kids will never meet their grandparents or whatever, so we're going to talk to them, and then it'll be just like talk to them in real life. It's not like talking to them in real life. They're not real. Whatever it is that you're talking to via AI or whatever, it is not real, and we need to be careful about that. Why? Here's a couple of points. We, humans, are made in the image of God, and those that follow Jesus have the Holy Spirit to shine a light into the world. This is important. What you need to remember is that AI is none of these things. AI is not human. AI is not made in the image of God. In fact, AI is made in the image of man. What does that matter? Why is that important? Well, think about how we are made in the image of God, and though we fall far from it, we have the opportunity to be more holy as God is holy. That's a great verse, both in the Old and the New Testament. Be holy as I am holy. Why is that important? Because we want to be as perfect as we can. We know we won't make it. That's fine. But we try. That's the goal. The goal is to be as perfect as we can. AI, made in the image of man, can only be as perfect as man can be, which, just say out loud, is not saying much. AI may tell you things that seem to be true, but these things are just sourced from either the programmer or just the internet. And a lot of times those things aren't correct. If you doubt that, go ahead and do some searches on times that AI has been wrong. And what if AI is not correct? What if it confidently sources a claim, but that source is wrong? Will you bother to check? Will someone bother to check? Even Alphabet, Google's parent company, their CEO, Sundar Pichai, said, quote, "Don't blindly trust everything they, AI, say," end quote. That seems like an important statement that we need to know. There's this funny meme. I'll just post it here, and if you're just listening, you ask the AI, "Is this mushroom edible?" Yes. Then it shows. This is sad. I shouldn't be laughing. Shows the person who is no longer alive, and the AI says, "You're right. It's a poisonous mushroom. Would you like to learn more about poisonous mushrooms?" And I know that's silly, right? But at the same time, it rings of truth because we don't know. We don't know what AI is telling us. We don't know why it's telling us things. It's just telling us things it's sourced or found or suggested on the internet, or more maliciously, someone has programmed it to say, which, of course, in some of those first iterations of the open source AI issues, we saw that there were some wacky things that AI told us that were clearly not true. It may seem like it's better now, but it's probably not. I mean, just to say the bottom line. Let's go even deeper, and I know I have a tendency to go this way, but I think this is an important point. Why should people say true things? Like, just from a general perspective, why should people say true things? Especially when, and you all probably run into this at one time or another, saying the true thing costs you relationally, monetarily, sometimes, capitally. Like, sometimes saying true things is not popular, not helpful. I've lost friends, sometimes family members, over saying true things. And so that's not always the best strategy from, if you take like a scientific perspective, the survival of the fittest. Saying true things is not the most important thing if you're looking at that point. You should be allowed, under that philosophy, survival of the fittest, to say whatever you need to say to survive and prosper. Which, of course, is the whole thing that AI does. AI wants to tell you the quote-unquote truest thing to make you happy or healthy or whatever. Unfortunately, that's not necessarily actually the true thing. Do you see the picture that I'm painting here? The reason we think people should tell the truth is because we are made in the image of God, and God is truth. Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." This is very important. Psalm 31 talks about this. John, the apostle, in his book John, talks about this. God never lies. Titus talks about this. Paul, the letter to Titus, talks about this. These AI modelers, made in the image of man, are just going to say whatever they think that you want to hear, and that's bad. AI has no actual good philosophical reason to tell the truth. I know that may seem counterintuitive because you're like, AI, tell me the answer to this, and it will in 1 second tell you the answer. But its main goal is to answer the question, which it does very well. What if the answer is not correct? Does it matter if the answer is not correct? What is the punishment for a lying AI? Think about that. If AI gets something wrong, as you saw in this silly little meme about the mushroom, the consequences to humanity could be drastic, catastrophic. But are they going to get in trouble? Are they going to get pulled offline? Maybe. Who knows? There's no penalty. There's no justice for a lying AI. It just happens to be wrong, which again could be incredibly unprosperous to you or humanity. On the other side of it, the Bible teaches us to value human life in regards to the taking of human life with the utmost seriousness. The value of life is the most important thing because God made men and women in his image, Genesis 9. Artificial intelligence just doesn't really care about you. And that might not feel good to you, but that's the reality of this. Like, artificial intelligence doesn't care if you're alive. In fact, it doesn't care about you at all. And I know we want to think that it does. There's all these weird posts that I'm seeing of people who put an AI bot on their smart device or whatever and then falls in love with it because it feels like a real human. But the reality is, no, none of this is real. It's not real humanity. Then if we go back to, that's just AI in general, if we go back to this idea where you have an app that your deceased grandmother, relative, etc., is going to hang out with you and talk to you and have conversations with you, I hate to say this. This sounds very uncaring and unfeeling, but this is not Christian. This is anti-Christian. You're not supposed to commune with the dead. First of all, it's not possible. And this is a wildly unpopular opinion in these days. You want to think, I see leaves blowing in the trees, and so that's my dead whatever communing with me. But if you read the Bible, really read the Bible through and through, from the beginning to the end, you realize that is not how any of this works. We immediately are either, upon death, are either in the presence of God or the absence of God, which we would label hell. There's no other place. There's no other way. And I know this is not a popular saying. I've done a bunch of funerals in my pastoral days, so I understand that this is not a popular thing to say. But what you have to recognize is we are not the creators of this world, nor the stewards of it in that sense, spiritually. So we have to just abide by the rules that are rather than what we want them to be. I know that's not an easy pill to swallow, but it just is the reality of it. So it's not possible to commune with the dead. Second, this is a world of spiritual forces. So those things are true. The dead are immediately in God's presence or not. If there are other spirits out there, which there are, those are either demonic spirits or sometimes angelic spirits. Unfortunately, for most of us, as we do occultic things like psychics, Ouija boards, etc., those are all demonic spirits. So whatever you're communing with, whatever you think you're talking to on this AI device, it's not good. At the best, it's a computer program that's going to pretend it knows you. At worst, it's possibly some kind of demonic spirit communing with you. That's bad. We should avoid that at all costs. And I know it feels harmless. It feels fine, but that's how you start down this path. And that's this big word called necromancy in the Bible. Necromancy is defined as the conjuring of spirits of the dead for the purposes of revealing the future or influencing the course of events or just feeling better about yourself. In the Bible, it's called divination, sorcery, spiritism. It's forbidden so many times. Leviticus, Deuteronomy, Galatians, Acts, etc. And every time it is an abomination to God because you're trying to do something that is outside of your strength and power to do. The Lord speaks very strongly against these, and it is to be avoided as much as any other evil. We need to not do these things. And it just seems like, oh, it's just an app. It's just harmless, whatever. But I hate to come down so strongly, but it's not just an app. These are gateways into some demonic forces. And if you've ever spoken to anyone who has been affected by demonic forces, you understand the severity of what is really going on here. We do not battle with flesh and blood, as we hear in Ephesians, but with the spiritual forces in the spiritual realm, and we need to take those seriously. That's why God says, and we read from Paul in Ephesians, that we're supposed to put on the full armor of God to battle against these things, not take off the armor and just stare at an app all day. So it's anti-Christian. It's also anti-biblical. God promises to reveal truth to us and freely give wisdom, James 1:5 and many other places. So if you believe the Bible, if you are following the Bible, if you are a Christian, you don't need to seek out truth or other revelations from dead people or other spirits. You don't need to. God will give you freely the wisdom that you need. You may feel that you need more than you have. You may feel that you don't have the full information or purview of the life that you're living, but that is just a lie from the devil saying, oh, if you want to be like God, if you want to know more things, then you need to seek out these other ways. And if you remember, we're going to get really biblical here, going back to the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve, what was the thing that the devil said? Did God really say, do you want to know more? Do you want to know the actual information of life and death and all of the things that God knows? This has been the lie from the beginning. Satan is not creative. He continues to reinvent the same lie. And we, humans, as smart as we are, keep falling for that same thing. So don't go down the path that leads to lies and death. In fact, go the other way to the only path that is the way, the truth, and the life, Jesus. Okay, let's do another AI thing. This is just a quick one that AI is going to replace millions of jobs. So this is connected, but not really connected. I just happened to see this about AI the other day and just wanted to talk through it. This is one of the, speaking of AI, I searched this answer on AI. How many jobs will AI eliminate in the next 10 years? Some searches that I looked at were 25 million. This one actually says 100 million. The Senate did a report on TrendForce that said 100 million. So sources are a little bit conflicted, but regardless, 25 to 100 million jobs, that is a huge amount of jobs that AI is going to take over. Some of this will be great. When the tractor was invented, people were out of jobs because before that, they would literally go into the field with a plow, with their hands, plow the field, and then the tractor eliminated those jobs, but it also prepared the way for some other things, making it easier to do certain jobs. This is a different situation. We just need to monitor it, and we just need to see what's happening. there are a lot of famous people. I don't need to name them. You probably know who they are. There's a lot of famous people saying that we're going to have to work less hard because AI is going to do a lot of the menial physical tasks for us, as similar to the analogy I just gave with the plow coming in and making farming easier. There's some of that. However, what I've been noticing and when I've been reading people who are talking about this, actually what we're seeing more of is not AI replacing the physical things. In fact, there's a bunch of robots being created, and I'm watching that. I'll be honest, I'm a little terrified about that, and maybe I just watched Terminator too many times as a kid, but that just seems to never end well. But secondly, beyond that, most of the robots are not actually functioning super well, especially the humanoid robots or whatever. Instead, what we're seeing is AI is replacing the mind things, the mental issues, the research things that take so long physically to find for humans, AI can do in mere seconds. So that's great, and it's replacing things in the intellectual fields because of the speed it can generate answers, and the speed is incredible. I just have to again caution, and I'm repeating at this point, the actual answers that AI gives you may or may not be correct. So it's wonderful that you can get the answers in a millisecond. Fantastic. I think that's a great tool, and feel free to use it. You can use that AI to help you do some things faster. That's really, really good. But remember, AI is not a replacement for critical thinking, and AI can never be wise. I'm going to say that one more time because this is really important. Artificial intelligence can never, this is as strong as I can say it, artificial intelligence can never be wise. Why? Because wisdom is an attribute that comes from the Lord. I could go through Proverbs and Psalms, a bunch of other places in the Bible that state that wisdom, knowledge, it all comes from God. Is AI connected to God? Can it be? No, it cannot be. Wisdom is only from the Lord, and AI is not human and will never be human, so it's incapable of real spiritual wisdom. And you'll say, well, it can know a lot of things faster than humans. Yes, sure, great. The internet, even right now, is full of so much information. It's wonderful, except how do you sift that information to find what's actually good information and what's not good information? This has been the biggest problem of the past several years, even in politics, where I started talking about originally a few years ago, because we think, well, the people online must be telling us the truth. Only most of the time, they're not. So how do you know? How do you know what's true and not true? The really only way to know is to know the God of the universe who knows true things and will impart that wisdom to you. So AI, the internet, all the technology may give you answers that seem true, but you have to test those answers. You have to test the spirits. That's something that we're told in the Bible, and not just believe all of these things with full trust. You just can't do it. I hope that's strong enough. I hope that's not silly. If you're still listening, I appreciate you. And let's go on to some other topics today. Okay. This is back to the Olympics. I know it was a little bit ago, but we really need to just say that the International Olympic Commission is finally acknowledging that men are not women. Yeah, I know that's silly, and we really should have known this from the beginning. But this particular agency just went so woke, they wanted to include everybody, including men, into women's things. You may or may not remember this weightlifter guy who dressed up like a girl and won the weightlifting competition of women. This guy who dressed up like a woman and punched a bunch of other women in the face as a boxer or whatever. And what would I say? Famously would not either go through gender testing, or the results of the gender testing seem to have been ignored. It's very unclear. At present, they're not fully banned, but they're acknowledging that men are not women and nature seems to be healing. There was a Telegraph article that said, quote, "The Olympics is increasingly likely to ban transgender athletes from all female competition following a science-based review of evidence." I'm going to pause there and say, yeah, men are not women. Like, the fact that we had to do a science-based, I can't even do it. The fact that we have to do a research study to see if a man is a woman just blows my mind. Anyway, let's continue on with this quote from the Telegraph. Quote, "Christy Coventry, the new president of the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, told Telegraph Sport in January she favored a blanket ban after winning the presidency in March, commissioned a review that assessed the permanent physical advantage of being born male." I can't even with this silliness. Although no final decision has been made, the update to IOC members reportedly stated that scientific evidence showed there were physical advantages. I can't do this without laughing. Physical advantages to being born male that remained even after reducing testosterone levels. End quote. Yes, like who who doesn't know this? Like seriously, who does not know this is a thing? Apparently, we are so smart we can't even tell if a man is a man anymore. So I'm hopeful about this. I hope things really change, but I'm not holding my breath. It's not even worth it. Okay, let's keep going. Here's a fun one. Oh, this is fun. This is Rob Schneider. So Rob Schneider, actor, comedian, was doing a talk and ended up talking about Jesus. I mean, like, these are the people who, you know, I grew up watching on TV or whatever, and they were pretty raunchy comedians. And so you go, I'll admit my skepticism early on, or just my lack of hope this person is ever going to find Jesus. But this is the thing. This is what I want to say about this. You never know. The person, your friend, your family member who you're like, I wish you would just find Jesus, and clearly you don't want to. But then sometimes they do, and you're like, wow, this is incredible. So let's just hear what he has to say here.
I know. Well, Robert De Niro hates Trump, you know, and I love Trump. I mean, he's not perfect, but there's only been one perfect person in the history of the world. That's Jesus Christ. So, you know, we all fall short of the glory of God.
Short and sweet, but that was at a Turning Point event as well. I mean, short and sweet, but gosh, I just love that. Like, yeah, he was talking about how some celebrities and actors and stuff hate Trump and some like Trump and whatever. I mean, people are going to do what they're going to do. I'm more concerned and more interested in, like, he just immediately turns to, yeah, Trump's not perfect. You know who was? Jesus. That's the only guy. Like, and he said it in front of a bunch of people, and they loved it, because truth is truth. You can hide it, you can bury it, but ultimately it's going to win, because we know it does. All right, let's do a couple of quick hits before we end this session today. Trying to go quicker through this because I know I just have a tendency to talk a lot. Ukraine. This is kind of interesting, fun. This just happened. I think maybe I saw this morning, but at any rate, it seems that Ukraine has agreed to the core, the main elements of the peace proposal, with some minor details being worked out. So we'll watch this. I think this is good. This is important. It maybe signals an end to the war. We'll have to monitor this situation. There's some other steps they need to get through and validate some things and whatever. But gosh, that would be just so incredible if this war were over. It's just been fairly senseless for a long time. I was wondering, as I saw this, what will those Ukraine flag and bio people do if this happens? But that's a side issue. All right, let's keep going. This one. So we've played on some of the other episodes. I don't have those polls here, but Dearborn, Michigan, which, by the way, I lived in a town basically adjacent to Dearborn, Michigan for several years, so I'm very familiar with what's going on here. I don't know more than most, but I understand a little bit of the dynamics going on here. At any rate, they had previously elected an all-Muslim city council. There are a lot of Muslims in the city. It appears that this city is just turning into the third world. I'm going to play this video here. I turn the audio off, so if you're just listening, you don't hear the audio. If you're watching, you're not hearing the audio. But you see a guy, an American, and he is going to a city council meeting. That's his point. As he's walking to the city council meeting, he is surrounded, and if you're just listening, surrounded by Muslims. The Muslims are chanting Allahu Akbar. At one point, it appears they even kind of threatened these two Americans. I think it's important to remember there is no neutrality. You're either for Christ or you're against Christ. You can't worship both. Like, you either worship Allah or you worship something else or you worship Jesus. There's no middle to all this. You can't be in a country with both deities in charge. Even back to the ancient world, what we don't remember, like, we just think everything, Americans, and the West more broadly think everything is just a democracy now, or at least it's like this close to being a democracy. Like you see that play out in our international politics, that we send people in to some of these countries, especially in the Middle East, to try to establish a democracy, and then it doesn't work because some people don't want democracy and they just want to exist in the way that they've existed for centuries or millennia at this point. And democracy is based on the rule of law, which is based on the Bible. And I can't say that more clearly. Like the rules of order that come out of the Bible, come through the Western world, come through the Magna Carta, come through the various constitutions in Western countries. It is all biblical ideals and biblical justice. And if you don't have the Bible as your foundation and truth as your foundation and justice as your foundation, then your world is ordered in a wildly different way. And so in these old ancient battles, what would happen when one party or another took over another country, the deities of that country would also be destroyed. And that's just the reality of it. And that makes sense because you've just won a battle, so you're bringing your deity, your God in, and that's going to be now the God of the region. Which, if you think about that and now read back through the Old Testament and read some of the battles that God leads the Israelites through and some of the gods, little g, that the Israelites encounter in the Old Testament, you realize this is the case. And you realize that when the Israelites are following God and doing the right thing and God gives them victory in battle, that God of the Bible, the real, true, and living God, becomes the God of the land. And when the Israelites do not do the thing they're supposed to do, another country, another people with another God, little g, come in, and the Israelites are taken away to live under this little g God. And you just have to realize, like, this is the difference, and this is what's going on. So it really is Christ or chaos. You can't have two deities in charge. It's not possible. Now, going back to this clip, I mean, you remember when Charlie Kirk was killed, the tragedy of that, but there was not rioting in the street from Christians. There was not vandalism. There was not billions in property damage. But we know what will happen if someone from the other side is affected. We saw it in 2020. We've seen it in other instances now. It appears that things are boiling in this region as well. Islam claims to be a religion of peace, but it is not. The Muslims will argue with you that Islam means peace, but Islam means submission to Allah, and then you are at peace. So it's peace for those that follow Allah. Everyone else must be made to submit. That's the reality of what Islam actually means. When you read their scriptures, that's what they talk about. It's not an American, it's not a Christian value. It cannot be by definition. And so we need to understand, like, these are two wildly different worldviews, and they cannot exist in the same place. One of them has to be in charge, and that is how it has been for all of history. And we just need to figure out what is going to happen here in this place. Let's see, a couple other things. Just kind of connected, but not. This is down in Florida, and this poster says they verified that 3 men were charged in Florida for interrupting a Muslim prayer. What did they do? Did they touch or do property damage? No, they did not touch the members. They did not do property damage, but these 3 American men were charged with felony hate crimes. So they didn't touch them, they didn't punch them, they didn't kick them, they didn't, like, break their stuff. What did they do? What they did was they held bacon in front of their faces. And you may laugh, you may think that's silly. I'm not sure it's something I would do, but you have to realize the takeaway here is these Americans going to people who are not acting like Americans are charged with crimes, allegedly. But Muslims who potentially, allegedly, threatened some Americans in American cities are not charged with anything. So I guess the takeaway is, if you're Muslim, you get a free pass to practice your religion and will be protected if people make fun of you or it. If you're a Christian and you go to cities that are populated by this other religion, you may get arrested and people may even seem to threaten your life. We need to understand that this is a spiritual battle, but it also has physical consequences, and this is the reality of it. And there are those that continue to argue so much against a Christian nation, but I don't understand that. What if you don't want Christianity as the foundation for your nation? What do you want? Because you cannot have nothing. We tried to have this short period where it was libertarianism or liberalism or quote unquote democracy, whatever that means. But secular humanism can't be a thing. Plus, I would argue it's a religion, but that's a longer topic for another day. And then if it's another religion, we see how those other religions act as they are in power, because there are countries in the world who are led by those religions. So which one do you want to be? What country do you want to be? I, for one, don't want to be a country that is in the Middle East, because I don't, as a Christian, I wouldn't survive there. Look at the things that are happening in the Middle East. Look at the things that are happening in Nigeria, where Christians are persecuted by Muslims. This is not a religion of peace. They will convert you to Christianity one way or another. They will convert you to Islam away from Christianity one way or another. And we need to understand the realism of what is going on. Not everybody in all of the world is going to enter a secular democracy. It is not possible. It does not fit with their religious values, and they don't care about yours. So what are we going to do? Like, how are we going to, and hear me correctly, Islam seeks to convert the world via force and submission. Christianity seeks to convert the world via love. We want to say God loves you, has a plan for your life, does not want you to live in sin and live in the squalor of the things spiritually that you were born into. Jesus wants to give you new life. He says new birth into a new way. Those are vastly different approaches to the problem of sin and death and justice. And I, for one, I'm going to follow Jesus. And as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. I think that'll do it for me today. For Church Public, I'm Matt Odegaard. I hope you will keep the faith.